Hello everybody, I hope you're all doing well and thank you so much for watching. Today we are checking out the Crazy Tube Circuit's Venus. It's a really great sounding tube overdrive that is based on the classic tube overdrives from the 80s and 90s. This thing covers all of those variants all the way into the rack mount version that ran basically buffered line level. It's all in this box, but there's also some pretty cool modern appointments and some tweaks that Crazy Tube Circuit set out to conquer. One of them being, back in the day, everybody was basically digging, or the standard tube was like a 12AX7 or ACC 83. Some people, and myself included, I preferred a higher headroom, lower gain tube, which was the 12, I believe, what was it, the 12AU7, which was the ECC 82. The stock tube in this is actually called an ECC 83-2. And what it does is it's kind of the best of both worlds between the ECC 83, which was a 12AX7, and an ECC 82, which was a 12AU7. Both sounded great by themselves, but this kind of allows for the best of both worlds between the two. And we'll get into how that sounds. But it's really cool because you can still put pretty much whatever tube you want in there. You can go to the manual and check it out, but I think you can do an AT7, a U7, 12AX7. You can do whatever you want, but the tube that it comes stock with is really cool sounding and feels really nice. So let's get into what's on top of this thing. Across the top row, you have volume, bias, and drive. We'll get into all of that in the demo and what it does. The bottom row of knobs is high, mid, and low. That's your EQ section. We'll definitely get into what's going on with that. You have a push button switch in the center called the tight switch. Does exactly what you think it does. Makes it more mid-centric, a little bit tighter. We will check that out in the demo. On the bottom is another push switch called a line driver. What that does is when it's in, it creates line level output. It's like a buffered line level output that you would get on the rack mount version of this pedal. We will definitely check that out in the demo. It's very cool. I don't think it's needed necessarily to the front end of an amplifier, but it does change the characteristic and can absolutely be used to the front end. Or you could push that in and maybe, drive the effects return of an amplifier straight to power. But essentially that's line level. Soft touch bypass, which is great. Ins and outs on the top. 9-volt DC that I think charge pumps up to 15 volts internal, so you don't want to use anything else. This does come with its own power supply if you want to use it. I think the milliamps on this thing are around 400, so it's a little bit taller. So it does come with its own power supply, but I'm having no problem powering it with what I have on my desk, which is my little Strymon Zuma. All right, so let's check this bad boy out. It is the Crazy Tube Circuits Venus. All right, here's the guitar straight into the amp. And here is the Venus. Okay, cool. My usual noise and forgetting a song I just wrote. Ta-da! Okay, so just kind of dialed through some gain staging or just drive levels. Brought that tight switch in and out. Turned on the line driver. We'll check that out in a second. The bias control obviously makes a massive difference. Just changing the voltage into that tube. Let's start with everything at noon, and let's just goof around with the high, mid, and low. I'll start with the highs. So it's, it's not just bringing highs in and out. You can hear things kind of shift, and it'll happen with all three controls. So that's what's going on with the highs. Let's check out what the mids are doing. So it's definitely a lower mid. It feels or sounds to my ears as you're kind of creeping up on 12 o'clock. It's more kind of mid-centric, but then it becomes more of a low mid as you push it clockwise. But that's what's going on with the mids. Now we'll do the lows. The lows are massive on this thing. Everything interacts with everything. I know that sounds silly, but it is, to my ears, a very interactive EQ. If you're going to push mids, then bring the lows down. So the reason I was making all those I'm making just minor moves, and it really changes the complete character of everything. I was able to go from like the violin-y thing by dumping lows, adding mids, dumping highs, and then just adding a little bit of highs changed everything within the mid characteristics. So, as I was discovering this pedal, and it's very common with this circuit, you need to get used to what it does. And then once you know, it becomes kind of muscle memory. It's instinct. But it is very, very active. You don't just turn up the lows necessarily, because it could change, I shouldn't say it could, but it does change everything else. So you get used to how to dial it. But that's why it's such a cool, just interactive pedal. I mean, and if I haven't mentioned, it feels great. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to leave everything alone. I'm going to throw this tight switch. I used that for the majority of everything I did, just because it sat in the track better. It took up less sonic space and brought the mids out. That's what that's doing. I really like that. The line driver is basically, it's like a buffered output. It was in the rack mounted ones. Obviously it's going to, if I was going to wire it into something, I might actually use that and go straight to power. But it's essentially, from what I can gather, it's line level. But you can use it to the input. It just adds a different dynamic. So that's what that's doing. I think it's really cool. like I said, you can go ahead and just use it to the front end of your amp. It's a different dynamic. It's more spread out, more active sounding, but that's what's going on with that. Drive, obviously off, is super off. It's a good amount of gain on tap there. Like I said before, it feels really great. I like it about right there. If I was just going to leave it set, I kind of had it over this way for those rhythm passes, but I think if I was going to leave it on all the time, I'd probably have it more this way. You can see that I'm just habitually rolling off the lows as I turn up drive. That's just part of the circuit. Part of a lot of circuits, actually. So that's what's going on there. Last but not least is the bias. So that's changing the voltage to the tube. As you go counterclockwise, it's going to get a little bit more gnarly all the way to just super spitty and almost gated sounding. I really like it all the way over, but here, check it out. So just that minor move from all the way clockwise, which is going to be the most kind of focused overdrive. If I just move it ever so slightly, that sounds really cool. The mids have changed. It feels a little bit more spongy. That is the Crazy Tube Circuits Venus. If you've got any other questions about it, by all means, please go to the website and check it out. You can find out exactly what's going on with the circuit and all the cool stuff that they did to this really classic, iconic circuit. And as always, I really, really appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you on the next one.